Now, perhaps one of my most traumatic childhood memories was an event that I like to call the 10-year-old birthday party from hell. Now, it wasn't my birthday, of course, because how could that be hellish, right? One of my friends invited me to his party where we watched 3 movies and then tried to fall asleep sometime after midnight. Now, I would have fallen right asleep as it was a Friday and I had been in school all day and I was 10 and then I'd been to a party for a very long time and I probably really never have been up that late before, were it not for the movies that were selected. We watched back to back in the period of 6 hours, Poltergeist, The Shining, and the 1980s remake of The Thing. And it was The Thing that got to me the most, I must say. But each of them worked their own special magic on my psyche. So after the lights were turned out, I lay awake in my sleeping bag in my friend's big, drafty, rambling, creaky old house, wondering exactly how I was going to survive the night. Now, eventually, I did figure out that 2 other kids at the party were also awake. And we moved into the kitchen, where we raided the refrigerator and turned on all of the lights, and we sat up talking until dawn. And we also swore that we would never, ever watch another horror movie again. Now, I have, but only as a class assignment, and they were all black and white. Now, I'd like to say that since I'm an adult now and my sense of reality is less fluid, that monsters don't scare me, but of course they do, as they scare many of us. Now, today we may be scared by different monsters sometimes, but not always, because it isn't the monster itself, but what it stands for that makes us get up and turn on the lights. For example, the cover of your order of service today has a zombie on it. And this monster, along with about half of its undead friends, is a special sort of monster that generates a special sort of existential fear. I remember in college, one of my professors explaining that movies and books and TV shows about zombies frequently become more popular during times when our society is struggling with a particular corporate anxiety, an identity crisis, if you will. The Cold War and the McCarthy era brought this fear to the fore, just as today zombies are popular again thanks to the war on terror. You see, certain people see in these zombies, these assimilated human beings, the encroachment of communism or Islamic fundamentalism, while others see these zombies and think of a society being pressed into sameness by the ideas and institutions ostensibly established to protect us from communists and Islamic fundamentalists. Either way, there they are. Zombies. A Rorschach test for our communal anxiety. Now, my brother Matt is something of a zombie expert, having founded and run the Providence Zombie Film Festival a few years ago. And he concurs with my professor. And he told me that if you pick any cultural anxiety from the last 80 years, someone has said that there's a zombie movie about it. And that may be true. But I do think that there is also a unifying theme to what scares us about zombies, and that is the simple fact that we don't want to be one. The anxiety that I see, at least, is the fear of sameness, the fear of uniformity, the same fear we have manifested in Daleks and Cybermen, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. We're afraid of becoming too much like everyone else, of having our own personhood somehow stripped away, leaving us without the passion of our individual existence. Zombieism is something you can catch, just like we can catch Ebola or the flu. But then we become what? Zombies. You can say it. Zombies, right. We become zombies. And in that becoming, we lose something. We lose the lives we knew. We lose our freedom in order to join the shambling mass. And we lose our souls. We lose our souls, which seems to be quite a bit to lose when all we seem to gain is the desire to eat other people's brains. Hopefully metaphorically. The thing is, however, many of us find comfort in the support of others. And we work hard to cultivate a connection to like-minded people, to the people we feel most comfortable with. As kids, we begin this process. I didn't go to that kid's birthday party again. I ruled him out. But it continues into adulthood. We tend to dress the same way our friends dress. We listen to very much the same music. We have the same interests, whether they are considered geeky interests or cool interests by the rest of the world. And perhaps we even end up pursuing similar careers. These points of sameness become tribal markers. Even those of us who consider ourselves nonconformists find friends so we can be nonconformists together. But in spite all of this unity and all that we get from it, we still do not want to be zombies. We don't want to buy into an idea or a product or a community so much so that we lose our perspective, that we lose what we find to be that most essential part of ourselves, whatever that is. Martin Luther, who the kids told us about today, quite creatively, I thought. Martin Luther once said that the mad mob does not ask how it could be better, only that it be different. And when it becomes worse, it must change again. Thus they get bees for flies, and at last hornets for bees. You see, we want to be social. We want to be connected, but we do not want to be the mindless followers of the mob, whether that mob advocates change or the status quo. That is the tension that we live with. As individuals in the midst of other individuals trying to get things done. And maybe that's why, as individuals, we focus on our differences, no matter how slight. Maybe that is why we sometimes like to think of ourselves as rebels and heretics. But the problem with that is that so much of what we do or see that is different about ourselves isn't really all that different at all. It's very, very hard to be a real heretic these days. We live in a global world where new ideas are constantly rediscovered. Yes, new ideas that we think are new are rediscovered as old. And different perspectives are right there for us to see any time we want. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of beliefs and assumptions in this world that we can push against. And there are revolutionaries. Jesus, A heretic to many in his time showed us one direction that we could take if we wished, when he separates himself from the others at that party to claim both his uniqueness and the uniqueness of his followers. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. And Martin Luther, too, pushed back against authority in ways that would seem far beyond what we can manage ourselves. At Luther's high noon moment, during the evocatively named Diet of Worms, which is not what you think, he concluded the defense of his works by saying, "I cannot and will not recant anything, since it is neither safe nor right to go against conscience." But sometimes our tendency toward relativity gets in the way of our convictions. Sometimes people, both inside and outside our movement, will claim that churches like ours, liberal churches like the Eliot Church, that at those sorts of places you can believe anything you want. How many of you have said something like that? I'll fess up. I have. But you know what? It isn't true. Because the very idea of non-creedalism, the very foundation of religious liberalism, precludes certain other worldviews. You see, we do believe in something, though it may be hard to acknowledge at times. What we believe is that each person should find his or her own way to a unique, personal, and individual orthodoxy that we can hold in our hearts with certainty. GK Chesterton in our reading today observes that in former days the heretic was proud of not being a heretic. It was the kingdom of the world, he said, and the police and the judges who were heretics. He was orthodox. He had no pride in having rebelled against them because they had rebelled against him. Now, we may not agree with Chesterton on everything because he was quite orthodox, but that's not the point. Here he challenges each of us to stand by our own beliefs, to find our own orthodoxy, even if the world sees it as heresy. Now, maybe we don't like that word. As liberals, we sometimes hold our convictions rather lightly, just waiting for someone to come and change our minds. But a faith built on inclusion and a diversity of perspectives without enforcement of an exclusionary creed was once orthodox enough for its adherents that they risked ruin, ostracism, and death. You see, the way to fight the zombies has always begun with the strength of conviction. A conviction strong enough to separate us when need be. So may we find ways to hold our heads up, to assert our humanity, to find our own individual, perhaps heretical orthodoxies, whatever they may be, and to embody our own diverse, radical, and rebellious path. Amen.